Welcome to the big show.
He could go all the way. Oh, America, are you serious? It is showtime, baby. Here we go. Slam, jam, slam. Hey, it's for this. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Give it up.
Welcome to the big show.
Let me say well.
Simply
Wait. I'm about to say well.
Gentlemen, welcome to Cold War Radio, live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. Also available, streaming live on weareamericaradio.com/live. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio. You can catch the show on Blueberry, Roku, YouTube. Cold War Radio is an iHeartRadio program. You can get the Cold War Radio app for free at your app store for Android or iPhone. Contact the show via digits at scrtv@live.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline is armed and activated, 412-567-2449. Please take advantage of that. That's a paid subscription, so we'd like to hear your calls tonight and every show going forward. 412-567-2449. The chat room is up on Spreaker. Go to steelcityresistance.blogspot.com. Catch the show notes links there. There's links to the Spreaker where you'll get the chat room. A great place to be. A lot of people in the chat room every night. We love you guys. If you can help when you get to the website, hit the donate button, or even more importantly, become a Cold War Radio patron. That's where you can decide what the show's worth to you, all four shows. 3 Cold War Radios, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday night, and Steel City Resistance on Sunday. And you can pledge a donation monthly. That's the the best thing we got going right now. So if you can help us out, become a Cold War Radio patron. There's a button right on the website. If you want to send me something via snail mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022. That's 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. Stacy is doing something more important than the show tonight. She has some family obligations, and that's always the most important thing to keep our nation together, is to strengthen the family. So she's doing that. She'll be off tonight. She'll be back next week. Let's welcome a couple more patrons for the month of May. Let's welcome Sigmund from in the chat room from the All-American Division, America's 911 82nd Airborne. Thank you, Sigmund. And Aaron Base Red Badger, thank you to you also. I'm humbled, and I truly appreciate anybody taking the time and resources out to become a Cold War Radio patron. We hope you enjoy the show, and that tells me that you do, and it makes me get in the studio about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before the show and put something together and come out here. It's a great experience. So thank you very much to all the new patrons and all the patrons that have been around since when we started in March, I believe it was. Let me just double check that. March is when we re-energized that program. I think you're going to like a new segment that we're going to do. Norway came up with a brilliant idea, and we're going to kick that back and forth. If you're listening, Norway, I sent you an email. But I think we're going to do something. We're going to add people like the Today in Cold War History segment, and I think we're going to do a segment it's history oriented. It's not going to necessarily be today, but it'll be a segment in there where we have a little bit of history every Monday. So we'll get into that, and we'll give you the details as they come available. Something that is very you're starting to see some of the fruits of the Trump administration, and I know you have to. I don't know about you guys, but the fake news is just getting overwhelming. You almost have to not listen to anything, and that's pretty hard to do. But if you look at all of the fake news stories that came out in the last 24 hours, the Assistant Attorney General was going to quit. The FBI had an investigation on Trump. I mean, just one thing after another was just fake. But they put them out there like they were real. And you've got Fox News spending 45 minutes on this Comey thing, and that gives you 30 minutes of the Russian thing. You even have the Russians going on the media now and saying, "Stop it, man! This is so reckless." And it's such BS when you look at the different Democrats and the way they've done an absolute U-turn on this thing. I'm tired of talking about it, but I'm not done yet, because you're gonna enjoy some of this, I think. Now, before we get to that, and we're going to get right back to it, but before we get to that, I want you to listen to a very liberal reporter on the news. He's from Kansas City, or Kansas. I think it's Kansas City. But AP sources say that Trump is going to launch a panel to investigate voter fraud. Praise the Lord, ladies and gentlemen. And whenever you see somebody that goes against stopping voter fraud, why would they do that? Because they are committing voter fraud. The Democrats can't escape this any longer. They're criminals left and right. And I pray for Jeff Sessions, because he's got a big job ahead of him. Somebody's got to take him down. I mean, literally. I want you to listen to this clip, man. This is so awesome. I don't even have to talk about it. Let's just listen to this clip out of Kansas City.
Who is Chris Kobach? Well, Chris Kobach, who is getting appointed as vice chairman to a new voting commission by President Donald Trump, is the Secretary of State of Kansas. He's had that position for 6 years. And Secretary of State usually just an administrative position, but Kobach has really used that office to push some of the most controversial conservative policies anywhere in the nation. Is the only Secretary of State in the nation with prosecutorial real power. He got that power in 2015. He has championed a Kansas law that requires people to provide proof of citizenship, such as their birth certificate or their passport when they register to vote. And Kobach argues that this prevents non-citizens from voting, ensures the integrity of Kansas elections, but other groups, including the American Civil Liberties Union, say this really ends up preventing actual citizens from voting. It's not the easiest thing to necessarily have those documents. Certainly passport, not everybody has one. And so we've had thousands of people who were placed on the suspended voter list. They couldn't vote because of this. This has gone back and forth in court, and there is a pending case still involving this law, in which we are waiting to see if Kobach has to turn over documents from a November meeting he had with Donald Trump. Kobach was the only Kansas statewide official to endorse Trump before the Kansas caucuses last year. He has been very connected with Trump since the campaign, advised him on immigration policy, has advised him on voting. Since the election, he met with Trump multiple times. He has been cited by Kellyanne Conway and others as the source of Trump's unsupported claim that millions of people voted illegally, thereby tipping the popular vote into Hillary Clinton's favor. So Kobach is going to be a guy who, if he's on this commission, a lot of voting rights advocates have concerns. They have concerns about whether he's going to use this position to exaggerate the prevalence of voter fraud, to help pass more restrictive voting laws. But there's also going to be a lot of conservatives who Kobach is a real hero to, who are going to be very pleased to see him. He's made a way of becoming this national conservative figure, both on the voting issue and also on immigration. He represented ICE agents in multiple lawsuits against the Obama administration and had helped craft some immigration laws that, once again, civil libertarians have not had the kindest things to say about him, but a lot of conservatives who are hardliners on immigration love the guy. So he's a guy to watch, and he might just be Kansas's next governor.
He just might be. And yet, did you see the way he tried to tie him to Trump like that was a bad thing? These people don't know what time it is. We've been wanting this immigration fixed. You know Trump got the popular vote. I hope they come into this county. Come into my county, baby. Uncover some of these dead people. So there you go. We got another champion. He picked another winner. You got to love it when he does this. This is one of his strong points, is picking the right person for the job. But let's get back now to the whole Comey situation. And I want you to listen to this indignance in Lester Holt's voice. Lester Holt managed an interview with the president, and he managed to interrupt him 9 times in less than 3 minutes. I mean, this is something. This guy is he's clutching his pearls. It's something else. We got a couple of these, but let's listen to Lester Holt.
He's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. You take a look at the FBI a year ago. It was in virtual turmoil less than a year ago. It has recovered from that.
Monday you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not...
You had made the decision before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey. There's no good time to do it, by the way.
Because in your letter you said I accepted their recommendation,
yeah, well,
so you had already made the decision.
I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really room.
He made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
Let me ask you about your termination letter to Mr. Comey. You write, I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation. Why did you put that in there?
Because he told me that. I mean, he told me that.
He told you weren't under investigation with regard to the Russia investigation?
I've heard that from others. I think.
Was it in a phone call? Did you meet face-to-face?
I had a dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House very early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And I said, I'll consider. We'll see what happens. But we had a very nice dinner. And at that time, he told me, you are not under investigation, which I knew anyway.
That was one meeting. What was it?
First of all, when you're under investigation, you're giving all sorts of documents and everything. I knew I wasn't under. And I heard it was stated at the committee, at some committee level, that I wasn't. Number one.
So that didn't come directly
then
from
during
him.
a phone call, he said it, and then during another phone call, he said it. So he said it once at dinner, and then he said it twice during phone calls.
Did you call him?
In one case, I called him. In one case, he called me.
And did you ask, am I under investigation?
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
But he's given sworn testimony that there is an ongoing investigation into the Trump campaign and possible collusion with the Russian government. You were the centerpiece of the Trump campaign.
Well,
so was he being truthful when he says you were under investigation?
I know that I'm not under investigation. Me, personally. I'm not talking about campaigns. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not under investigation.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. They use that word. They use that collusion word. It's not good. All right, I got another clip, but I'm going to hold back. I'm looking at the clock, and we're eating up time here with these clips. They're longer than I thought. I want to go to an article from the Conservative Treehouse. This is a bummer. But I'll tell you, you're going to see by the end of this why I pay attention to Sundance and the Conservative Treehouse. It's called, because we really have to identify these traitorous Republicans that are in the ranks. And there's several of them, and we have to purge them out. Senators John McCain and Ben Sasse announced intent to vote against Robert Lighthizer for trade rep confirmation. The economic lobbyist community known as the Big Club is represented most visibly by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Tom Donahue. Via the Wall Street community, Chamber of Commerce President Donahue pours tens of millions of multinational corporate contributions into D.C. lobbying efforts to retain control over politicians and legislation that relates to U.S. trade and economic matters. Donahue's Chamber of Commerce lobbying group were the primary architects of the now dispatched TPP trade deal. They actually wrote the U.S. part of the construct. Tom Donahue funds a large number of politicians in D.C. in an effort to control the outcomes of legislation and policies that could become adverse to his multinational interest. Two of those primary beneficiaries are John McCain and Ben Sasse. As a consequence, it doesn't come as a surprise to see McCain and Sasse announce their intention to block the confirmation of U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. That's prostitution to me, ladies and gentlemen. These people don't give a damn about the country. From Reuters, Republican U.S. Senators John McCain and Ben Sasse said on Wednesday they would vote against President Donald Trump's nominee for U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer because of his opposition to the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. Unfortunately, your confirmation process has failed to reassure us that you understand NAFTA and its positive economic benefits to our respective states and the nation as a whole. That's laughable. McCain and Sasse said in a letter to Lighthizer. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and President Trump strongly support Lighthizer for U.S. Trade Representative. The institutional control agents within K Street, a.k.a. the Economic Lobbying Group, do not. The bottom line arguments center around retention of global multinational economic interests that are antithetical to President Trump's America First economic and trade platform. K Street wants to retain 3 decades of Wall Street control over trade to position the multinational interests as a priority. President Trump wants to break K Street's lobbying grip and work trade policies that benefit Main Street, not Wall Street. The issues behind the argument are complex, and the political lobbying expenditures only compound the matter. In essence, over the past 3 decades, large portions of U.S. agriculture, listen to this is farms, U.S. agriculture have been sold to multinational corporations with control over production principles. Those multinational corporations manipulate the market value of U.S. agricultural outputs to retain the highest profit margin. It's not a free market system. It's a controlled market system, and the control is not domestic ownership. It's multinational corporations. So you've got United States senators voting for other countries here. Listen to how insidious it gets. Part of the way they control the pricing of U.S. agriculture outputs is through export control. The traditional supply and demand commodity equation is non-existent. This is not a free market. When multinational corporations control commodity pricing, it's not a free market. The paradigm that everyone needs to remember is that a free market doesn't exist because the owners, control agents of the market, are not independent. They are massive, institutional, multinational corporations. Through heavy-handed contracts pushed on farmers, they control the product from field to processing and beyond. The export of domestic food production is a big part. Listen to this. If you've been to the grocery store, listen to this. The export of domestic food production is a big part of the reason why U.S. food prices have skyrocketed in the past decade. The corporations factor in an ability for the U.S. to afford higher prices than alternative destination nations. They know that you have the ability to pay more, so they export more and recipient nations pay less. Again, it's a complex dynamic, but this also ties in to the same groups lobbying for increased consumer welfare payments on SNAP and EBT food stamp legislation. Yes, multinational corporations who control agriculture lobby Congress like John McCain and Ben Sasse to fund more subsidy payments for food. This allows them to export more, tighten the domestic supply, drive up U.S. pricing, and increase their profit. It's a deeply tentacled, controlled process toward increasing the bottom line profit margin of the Wall Street entities. They have more to export, they make more money. And they drive up the domestic pricing, they make more money. And they pay the lobbyists for welfare legislation to subsidize U.S. food pricing, they make more money. That's the basic scheme, and when you know the financial con, you can spot their motives. Unfortunately, when you know the con, it can explode your blood pressure to fully grasp how much we're getting ripped off, especially when you read their insufferable reasoning to keep the current system in place. So knowing that, here's the letter of opposition from McCain and Sasse, who are being paid by these lobbying entities to retain this controlled market system. And I'm not going to read the entire letter, ladies and gentlemen, but if you go to the show notes links, you can catch it there. It's pretty long. I wonder if they even wrote it themselves. They signed it, but you can imagine what it says. But now you can see why this same group of usurping senators are refusing to accept the NAFTA letter of intent from Secretary Ross. We have to fight these jackasses head on, ladies and gentlemen. The first step in fighting them is to understand the rigged system they control and why they are controlling it. That's currently important battle space. And I'll take that even a level further. They're not controlling anything. They're getting their marionette strings pulled. They're prostitutes. That's all that is. Now, there's a couple tweets at the end of this from Vice President Pence. Says that he welcomed the grocery makers to the White House today, an organization that plays a key role in the lives of the American people and the life of our nation. Now, I have an update for you, because after all that, I have an update. Robert Lighthizer confirmed as U.S. Trade Representative. Senate vote 82-14. 3 Republicans voted no. Cory Gardner from Colorado, John McCain, Arizona, and Ben Sasse, Nebraska. Sundance, job well done, sir. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. 412-567-2449 if you'd like to comment. I'd especially like to know how it's looking at your respective grocery stores. I've been absolutely amazed at some of the price hikes in some of these agricultural commodities. Beef, I mean, you look at dried beef. You used to be able to get a big jar of dried beef for $1, $1.50. Now it's $7 almost. in some places. The prices are just off the hook in a lot of places in America. And, that's criminal to me, though. John McCain, Arizona, you got to get your act together. I'm telling you, you people in Arizona. I know the GOP tried to censor the guy once, but he came back and crushed his opponent. Are you that afraid of this guy? We have to highlight, identify, isolate, and remove these cancers that are in our own party, or we don't stand a chance. When you've got somebody like that, that's like having a double agent right inside the wire. I mean, we're never going to get anywhere if we don't do something about these people. Let's listen to a clip. This was, let's see here. Let me get back to the part where it's... This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's a rising star, and ABC's Jonathan Karl is grilling her, and I want you to hear how she responds. It's almost like she's becoming a rising star. I mean, this was just wonderful to watch. Let's listen.
Two parts of the Comey question regarding the interview the president just gave. First of all, isn't it inappropriate for the President of the United States to ask the FBI director directly if he is under investigation?
No, I don't believe it is.
But one of these conversations, the President said, happened at a dinner where the FBI director, according to the President, was asking to stay on as FBI director. Don't you see how that's a conflict of interest? The FBI director is saying he wants to keep his job, and the President is asking whether or not he is under investigation?
I don't see that as a conflict of interest, and neither do the many legal scholars and others that have been commenting on it for the last hour. So, no, I don't see that as an issue.
Sarah, the other thing I want to ask you about is, I asked you directly yesterday. This is a different subject related to Comey. I asked you directly yesterday if the President had already decided to fire James Comey when he met with the Deputy Attorney General. And you said no. Also, the Vice President of the United States said directly that the President acted to take the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General to remove the FBI Director. Sean Spicer said directly it was all him, meaning the Deputy Attorney General. Now we learn from the President directly that he had already decided to fire James Comey. So why were so many people giving answers that just weren't correct? Were you guys in the dark? Was the Vice President misled again, as happened?
I know you'd love to report that we were misled, and we want to create... Hold on, Jonathan. I let you finish and read off every single one of those statements, so unless you want to trade places, I think it's my turn now. I think it's pretty simple. I hadn't had a chance to have the conversation directly with the President to say. I'd had several conversations with him, but I didn't ask that question directly. Had you already made that decision? I went off of the information that I had when I answered your question. I've since had the conversation with him right before I walked on today, and he laid it out very clearly. He had already made that decision. He'd been thinking about it for months, which I did say yesterday and have said many times since. And Wednesday, I think, was the final straw that pushed him, and the recommendation that he got from the Deputy Attorney General just further solidified his decision, and again, I think reaffirmed that he made the right one.
But was the Vice President in the dark too? This is important. Was the Vice President in the dark too?
Nobody was in the dark, Jonathan. You want to create this false narrative. If we want to talk about contradicting statements and people that were maybe in the dark, how about the Democrats? Let's read a few of them. You want to talk about them? Here's what Democrats said not long ago about Comey. Harry Reid said Comey should resign and be investigated by the Senate. Senator Chuck Schumer said, I don't have confidence in him any longer. Senator Bernie Sanders said it would not be a bad thing for the American people if Comey resigned. Nancy Pelosi said Comey was not in the right job. Former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz said that she thought Comey was no longer able to serve in a neutral and credible way. President Obama's advisor Valerie Jarrett reportedly urged him to fire Comey. Just yesterday, Representative Maxine Waters said that Hillary Clinton would have fired Comey. If you want to talk about people in the dark, our story is consistent. The President is the only person that can fire the director of the FBI. He serves at the pleasure of the President. The President made the decision. It was the right decision. The people that are in the dark today are the Democrats. They want to come out, they want to talk about all of these, they love Comey and how great he was. Look at the facts. The facts don't lie. Their statements are all right there. I think it's extremely clear that, and frankly, I think it's kind of sad. In Washington, we finally had something that I think we should have all been able to agree on, and that was that Director Comey shouldn't have been at the FBI, but the Democrats want to play partisan games, and I think that's the most glaring thing that's being left out of all of your process stories.
All of your process stories. She put him in his place, but that was a good one. I like her. She's got a future. Now let's talk about the future, something that's near and dear to my heart. From the New York Times, via the Drudge Report, steel industry is seeing a new dawn and is cheering for Trump. When you hear stories like this, you wonder how so many idiots, so many useful idiots that I guess they don't want to work. Maybe they just want benefits. But this guy he's doing it already to the economy. Stocks are up and employees at a South Carolina plant are confident. They're confident in the prospect of infrastructure spending and a tough stand on trade. By Patricia Cohen-May out of Huger, South Carolina. And this is a caption of a picture. And there's several. You need to go to the show notes links and look at this story because the pictures are magnificent. So I left some of the captions in. Safely stationed in a control pulpit, Chris St. Amand is watching the pot boil. Working the day shift at the sprawling Nucor steel plant along the Cooper River here, Mr. St. Amand monitors a 4-foot-wide lasagna noodle of steel as it is dunked into a molten broth of protected shimmering zinc. He tracks every step of this galvanization process from the cauldron's 865-degree temperature to the line speed on a bank of flashing screens, except that is for the screen at the bottom right. I watch our stock in the Dow Jones on that one, he said. Mr. St. Amand, whose pay package includes profit sharing, likes what he sees. Since Election Day, Nucor is up 13%. Now, this is a big deal. I mean, we were crippled for a long time. You had people importing structural steel. Across the steel industry, stock prices and spirits have been on the rise, lifted by President Trump's vow to protect American manufacturers against cheaper imports and invest as much as $1 trillion in infrastructure over the next decade. Behind Trump's trade deficit obsession, okay, that's just another headline. If you could design a perfect administration from the perspective of the steel industry, this would be it, said Thomas Gibson, president of the American Iron and Steel Institute, ticking off the president's promises to hack away regulations and lower taxes while fending off foreign competitors and embarking on a Buy America building program. Now, unfortunately for me, the electorate in the Pittsburgh area is entirely too brainwashed with the whole global warming hoax and the environmentalism. I mean, this town's it's effeminated. It's feminized. I mean, you wouldn't believe it compared to the town I grew up in. I don't think steel will ever come back here. It could, but it would have a fight. These idiots would fight against it every step of the way. I mean, they even made a symbolic bill that you couldn't frack within the city limits. Not that anybody was doing that in the first place, but it's a shame. It's a real shame, and it's sad to see an area like mine that had such a glorious industrial past. Granted, we needed to clean the air up, but we had pretty much done that. And then to see the opportunity come back, and you just know that nothing's gonna happen here. These people, they're so leftist anymore that they bail it right out. It would be gone. But anyway, it's good to see that steel-making capability is on the resurgence, even if it would be in the South. That's fine, because I'm getting ready to move somewhere here soon anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Cold War Radio with Hutch Bailey Jr. Going the whole hour tonight. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. This is Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio, WAAR.
Dr. Weir's mystery will be continued shortly. Say, by the way, Doctor, is mystery your sole pleasure?
Young man, what could be more pleasant than mystery?
Well, music, for instance. That's
music, why, of course. Have you ever heard my clanking of chains?
Doctor, I'm afraid you've got me wrong. I mean the kind of music men hum or whistle when they feel on top of the world. And gentlemen, one of the many things that give you that tip-top feeling is the pleasure of being well-dressed. Perfect taste is the criterion, and in hats, there's nothing smarter than an Atom. From stem to stern, your Atom hat gives off that look of quality. You see quality in the carefully molded shape, and in the richness of the genuine all-fur felt, and in the subtle color shade. Next time you pass an Atom hat store...
I used to hate pooping in public. You know the feeling. Nothing is worse than stinking up the shared toilet at work, or the toilet at a party, or your lover's apartment. Of course, flushing removes the graphic evidence. Maybe 2 or 3 flushes if your skid marks are as tenacious as mine. But what can be done of that subtle scent of a 300-cow dairy farm? Aerosol air fresheners aren't the most effective option, or the healthiest. Trying to mask the stench, giving you a nice blend of ChemLab carnations with just a touch of feces. So, how do you make the world believe your poop doesn't stink? Or in fact that you never poop at all? Poopery. Poopery is the before-you-go toilet spray that has proven to trap those embarrassing odors at the source and save relationships.
And welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen. There's some interesting news, some good news, just like the last story was good news. 412-567-2449 if you'd like to join the program. But more states are following Trump's assault on sanctuary cities. From Alan Gomez from USA Today, many cities across the U.S. identify as sanctuary cities despite President Trump's threat to withhold federal funds. And here's a closer look at what that label means. At least 33 states considered laws this year to crack down on sanctuary cities, nearly double the number from 2016. Now, this is where the Democrat meltdown that is very sparsely reported. You don't hear it anywhere. But they lost thousands of seats in local and state governments. And this is where this becomes really important. Georgia, Indiana, Mississippi, and Texas already passed laws this year that punish local governments and public universities that enact policies to protect undocumented immigrants, and other states are trying to follow suit. Last year, 18 states considered such laws, compared with only 4 in 2015, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. The rush comes after Trump's repeated warnings on the campaign trail about the dangers caused by sanctuary cities and his actions since taking office to cut off their federal funding. There's more sanctuary activity at the state and local level because of the president's marshaling confidence, says Dale Wilcox, executive director of the Immigration Reform Law Institute, which has helped state lawmakers craft their bills. This is what the president's executive order on sanctuary jurisdictions was meant to hammer home. So this is something that you're starting to see the movement. I mean, you heard the president say it on the campaign trail, and you felt it. This was a movement. This was not, and you can tell by there not being any love for the Republican establishment. I certainly don't. I want to root this. I want to clean this out. I mean, this is something I'll tell you. I hold John McCain and people like John McCain and Ben Sasse, and just today, Jason Chaffetz, calling for an investigation of Comey's firing. What are you doing? What is wrong with you people? Well, it's clear what's wrong with the Republican Party. The Republican Party, we're either going to fix it or I'm getting out of it. We're either going to take it over or we're going to have to replace it. Because it is in bad shape. And they obviously they probably can't fix it themselves because all the people at the top are the ones that were positioned there by the people in K Street. And I would say Saudi Arabian money has a lot to do with that too. So I don't know what to do about it, but I'll tell you, my part is going to be identifying them to you. And then when these people come up for re-election, I've said it before, I can't say that yet, but I guess I could say it in a general way. You have to provide resources to them, even if they're not in your state. Because ever since the 16th or 17th Amendment, I forget which one it was, whenever they hoodwinked the American people and we changed the Constitution for the worse, making the Senate an election by popular statewide vote instead of the way it was intended to protect the states, that the state assemblies would select and appoint the senators to the Senate. Then they could not go, then you couldn't have somebody like John McCain going to the Senate and voting against the will of his state by backing the Gang of Eight immigration reform and amnesty. In Arizona, a state that's hurt by that very badly. Or somebody like John Casey, Bob Casey, in my state, voting against steel or fracking. You know, the state assembly would have never allowed that. Well, maybe in Pennsylvania they would. But in Arizona, the Arizona GOP censured John McCain. He wouldn't be there right now if we wouldn't have changed the Constitution. You know, but now John McCain, with all his K Street and Chamber of Commerce backing, probably has a lot of money to throw around to the electorate in Arizona. He certainly has a lot of money to destroy opposition candidates. I mean, one of the things that you could notice about these corrupted Republicans, and Mitt Romney's one of them, and almost all of them are, really. But the way that you could really tell is how they fight so fiercely against other Republicans, but they get on their knees for the Democrats. That's how you can tell. And you know, for years we all thought that, oh, these Republicans just don't know how to fight, or these Republicans are too nice, or, you know, we don't have time to do that. We do it the right way because we have to work. It's not what it's been. These guys are clearly on the other side. They are fake. They are fake Republican, like the news is fake news. It's all a big show. It's all a big show. You know, they marry each other. They're kids. They go to school together. They vacation together. It's all a big joke, and we're just getting carried along for the ride. Now, I'll tell you something else that's going on here. Let's talk about Facebook for a minute. And I don't know that you should immediately blame Facebook for this, because what it is it's radical Muslims that are playing the game. This is from Heat Street. Facebook has been regularly shutting down atheist and ex-Muslim groups. From Heat Street, Home Culture Wars, and Masha Froliak. Yesterday, Facebook restricted and then shut down the public pages of ex-Muslims of North America with 24,000 followers. And Atheist Republic, 1.6 million followers. Groups that advocate secularism, and provide support to apostates, people who leave Islam and who often face persecution. In fact, the ex-Muslim group claims that for the last several years, Facebook has been continuously blocking groups like it. The ex-Muslims have written an open letter to the social media giant calling on it to stop exercising intellectual persecution against atheist and ex-Muslim organizations and to whitelist such vulnerable groups from organized false flagging attacks. And that's why I say I don't necessarily think you should blame Facebook. They're using these radical Muslims are gaming the system with the complaints. On Monday, Mohammed Saeed, the president of the ex-Muslims of North America, took to Twitter to report that the Facebook pages of ex-Muslims and Atheist Republic were restricted and the next morning shut down in violation of Facebook's community standards. No details were given as to what standards were violated. On Tuesday, after appealing the case, both groups were able to regain full access to their pages. But again, what happens is that all these groups get in there and, they just rapid fire with the complaints. And then the algorithms, I guess, once they get so many complaints, they automatically shut them down. So you can get your act together, Facebook, and whitelist some of these groups that are just trying to do what they can to have somebody like them be in contact with somebody like them, because they get automatically isolated in their own communities. So anyway, hopefully that gets resolved. 412-567-2449. I don't know why I have his phone system anymore. You guys used to call all the time. We're running out of time, though. We got a situation that's brewing across the country. You heard us talk about this on the Wayne Dupree program about the Harvard class that wanted to have an all-black commencement. Well, I guess out at University of California at Santa Cruz, there's a black student group out there that apparently took over some buildings on. Can you imagine this? These are students. These are people paying for the privilege of going to this institution, and they take over a building, and they're threatening more campus takeovers if additional demands are not met. Since when did college students get to demand things? I mean, I got this from the Drudge, but it's via the collegefix.com. At Matthew Stein Swarthmore College, there will be more reclamations, which means to me they're reclaiming something. Do they think it used to be theirs? University of California Santa Cruz administrators recently agreed to meet to all four demands lodged by a black student group who commandeered a campus building and would not leave until their conditions were met. But in addition to the four initial stipulations, the group made three other demands to the university, and it has warned UC Santa Cruz that it has 4 months to comply with these demands, or more reclamations will result. After 3 days of occupation by students of Kerr Hall, Chancellor George Blumenthal agreed to give all black and Caribbean identified students a 4-year housing guarantee to live in the Rosa Parks African American themed house, bring back the building's lounge, paint its exterior the Pan-African colors of red, green, and black, and force all new incoming students to go through a mandatory diversity competency training. The student demonstrators raised a number of issues with campus leaders, issues we fundamentally agree upon, Blumenthal stated in a May 4 memo to the campus community announcing the concessions. Students from historically underrepresented communities deal with real challenges on campus and in the community. These difficulties include things that many people take for granted, such as finding housing or even just a sense of community. Yet the African Black Student Alliance also demanded 3 additional provisions from UC Santa Cruz within its initial reclamation statement, posted on the website of the African Black Coalition. The group stipulated that if, by fall quarter 2017, the university does not provide detailed plans on how to fulfill these new demands, there will be more reclamations. Reclamation is how the student group referred to its aggressive 3-day takeover of Kerr Hall. Now, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, and I'm from another world. But if it was my college and they did that, tear gas works real well. Tear gas through the window works really well. Shutting off the water and electric is another good tactic to remove undesirables from your property. There's all kinds of things. If we don't start fighting back against these people, and I'm not just talking about this group. These groups are the Antifas and the Occupies and all the rest of these vermin that have never experienced a damn bit of hardship. That's the part that pisses me off. If a kid, black or otherwise, gets into UC Santa Cruz, that kid is living large. You know, these are not hood rats. These are people that have resources. And to listen to them complain, Antifa too, and to listen to them complain and act like they're victims and they're down with the struggle and so oppressed, it's sickening. Most of them have never done a day's hard work in their life. And I guarantee, and I might get some hate mail on this, but I never cared about that before. I guarantee if you line them up and surveyed them, there isn't a father in the bunch. There isn't one that had a father, an effective father in the bunch. Can you imagine, guys? Can you imagine scraping the money together or whatever you had to do to get your son or daughter into a school like that, and you find out that's what they're doing with their time? I'd be mad just at them wasting the 3 days that I paid for to be in a building and not to be in class learning something. But to embarrass my name and be involved in something like that, that kid, that'd be his last day of college. You know, this is nothing. Don't get me wrong. This is nothing against strong women. I know you're out there. I know you're doing great things. And I know you're raising great kids. But there's a large segment of our culture that does not have the benefit of you. There is a large segment of our throwaway culture that is out there and they're on their own. And probably their parents or mother or whatever is their friend, not their parent. And I'm telling you, you could take 95% of the problems in our culture today and you could fix them if we could find a way to incentivize parenting again, to incentivize a nuclear family. You know, it's something that it's true. There's nobody's going to talk me out of that. That's something, as a matter of fact, I can't remember his name. I can see him. Not Walter Mondale, no. Moynihan. Senator Moynihan wrote about this in the 1960s, or it might have been the early 70s. And he forecast exactly where we are now. Patrick Moynihan. And he wrote that the erosion of the family in the inner city is going to come back to get us. Well, it's getting us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is getting us right now. And there's no doubt in my mind how bad it's getting us. So hopefully we can get something. You can see one thing. You don't even have to be his supporter or anything like that, but you can see that Donald J. Trump is a family man. He might, even though he got divorced, like I did, Even though he got divorced, he stayed in his children's lives like I did. So divorce is no excuse. You divorce a man or a woman. You didn't divorce the kids. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening live. Thanks for participating in the chat room. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Don't go anywhere. The Wayne Dupree program is coming up next from 9 to 10. I don't want anybody to get, I didn't even look in the chat room. I don't want anybody to get upset or think that I'm forgetting about anybody. I know that what I said doesn't apply to everybody, but there's no way you can deny that it is a plague on our nation. And it has been devised to tear us down. Go to Cultural Marxism. There's a good movie on steelcityresistance.blogspot.com in the research room that explains this was a plan. And it's worked, but we have to reverse it. Thanks for letting me into your life for 1 hour. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless.